भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ नमो भगवते वैवस्वताय मृत्यवे ब्रह्म विद्याचार्याय नचिकेतसे च उषन्हवै वाजश्रवः सर्ववेदसं ददौ तस्यः नचिकेता नाम पुत्र आस The Upanishad begins with a story, and the story in Sanskrit is called Akhyayika, storylet. But Ika, Ik and Ika sometimes has that Ak and Ika like Balakaha, Akhyayika, that it is a certain Tadhita suffix that makes everything small. Yeah. Balakaha, small child, small boy. Vrikshakaha, bush, not tree. And then if it is feminine, the aka becomes, the cup becomes ka, ika, the feminization of it. So akhya, what happens to it? Akhyayika. So this means a small story. And like I had told before when we did the introduction, this is a very common way for the Upanishad to begin. So I had mentioned that there were some general ways in which the story is deployed, or the functions and the uses of the story. So what are they? Why start with the story?
It gives role models who have similar problems.
So one is to have the to make people identify with the characters, or if it is like someone like Nachiketa, very difficult to identify with because he is so present, and he is, as he will himself say, he sees himself as first or second at the most. And so if it is difficult to identify, what do? You have that role model. Next, what else?
So archetypes will be part of role model.
Yeah. Nice try, however.
To make it interesting. To make it interesting.
Shrotru buddhi prarochanaya. We saw in some other Upanishad. Which one Bhashya was that? How many Bhashyas are we studying right now? What are the possibilities?
Gita's always the answer, huh?
How many Bhashyas are we studying now? We have to think like that. So, how many Bhashyas are we studying now? We are studying Bhashya detailed. I told you I'm going to summarize for Gita. So 3 how? Yeah. So if it is not Kathau, then what else will it be? Yeah. So, Shrotru Buddhi Prarojanaya, he says, Buddhi of the Shrotas, the listeners, prarojanaya, to make it to spice up the buddhi, not to spice up the buddhi so that the buddhi wakes up. So these stories are the coffee for the buddhi, caffeine. Yeah, buddhi means the faculty of which processes whatever is heard. And then he explains prarojitayam hi vidyayam, Shraddha Bhakti Purasaraha Pravarteran, meaning the people will go forward with the Upanishad only when the buddhi is convinced that this is something to pursue. So that is a definite reason, the place for the story. What else? I gave a number of things.
So the jiva is relaxed.
So that the jiva doesn't, who's already feeling what? Like a chickenless head rolling around in despair and self-judgment, learns to let go a bit, because like I said, it is a very interesting way. It's an identifier as well as a disidentifier, because as long as it's happening to somebody else, I'm able to pay attention. Don't let it be about me. Yeah, okay, Nachiketa had some problems, oh, theek hai, wonderful. It's a gossipy, nice little gossip. Someone called Nachiketa, was banished by his father. Oh, then what happened? Because you don't have to deal with doesn't have to deal with one's own feelings of abandonment, or one's own feeling of search or quest or whatever one is suppressing. So it is a safety place of being able to sit and watch what is happening, and a safe way to address what is happening without directly shining the spotlight on it, which might be frightening for a number of people. What else? What other purpose does the story serve?
Does it give historical what happened before? It gives us a cultural and historical.
Yeah, it gives, I wouldn't say historical so much, because we are not so concerned with history. It gives us an idea of the socio-religious societal mores of the time. And why is this important? Because then we see the timelessness of people's issues, socio-religious, psychological, situation. That time also everybody was working hard to overcome putraishana, lokaishana, vittaishana. What is that?
Limitations of
Huh?
Desire for the world.
Desire for lokas,
Space.
progeny and
With wealth.
wealth. So now what are people trying to do? What are they accumulating? Sin. Yeah. And there certain, issues, psychological issues are dealt with, such as feeling of conflict or not knowing, etc., for which it was told that, for which it is repeatedly told in the Upanishad. I mean, the whole stories, talk about the same feeling of angst. When? So many years ago. So there is a certain, not so much historical, but the timelessness, the timeless continuity of the problem with the human condition. And what is the human condition? Non-acceptance. So this is the problem. and then the solution for that problem. And what is the solution for that problem? Self-knowledge. Because that's the only solution. Even if you go somewhere and do bhangra, which is some kind of a vigorous dance, it just amplifies the already dance that is happening in the universe. Samsara dance, that's all it is. Samsara dance means samsara that makes you dance. That's all. Nothing else. And so therefore, it gives a timelessness about the nature of the quest and the solution therein. And the nature of the quest, even it's not a time-bound quest. Like if we had said that there were certain gold diggers, literally, who were looking for gold. Maybe they were panning for gold or they were digging for gold. Where? In some basin of the river. When? 5,000 years ago. That is not so interesting. Yeah. Because how many people are gold diggers literally? Figuratively we are not counting. Literally how many people are? It's a very specific quest and a specific occupation. Whether you go like this with that metal detector, some people do this. Yeah. In the south, everybody has one of those. And the idea is that you go to Florida, everybody is just going in this semicircular arc with these metal detectors, especially elderly people. Lot of hope they have that maybe somebody's watch, somebody's gold ring, they'll just make, and all they find is tin can lids. That's all. That's all they find. Nothing else. It's just very disappointing. But so that is an occupation that's only going to interest certain people. Suppose you say that, okay, this is a story of someone who story of some people who are blacksmiths. It will only interest some people who have that occupation. But here the timelessness of this quest makes it akin to the modern day human interest story. What is a human interest story? That has a universal appeal. Yeah, everybody's, goes, oh, so sweet, so wonderful, really so nice. Oh, how wonderful. This is how they go. There is an appeal for everyone. That is the power of these stories. What else? Why should we have a story?
Last chapter, Pala.
Last chapter means?
Well, the Pala,
The phala.
the gift, the story.
The phala shruti. Now what is the phala shruti of the story?
Me.
But then why story? You could just say you. What is the purpose of the story?
Well,
We don't
Yeah.
get ourselves.
Huh?
We don't get ourselves.
Yeah, so the purpose of the story, to put it more directly, is to show the centrality of the way in which the knowledge has to unfold through surrender, through seeking and surrendering, to not have the fear to commit to the person who is giving the knowledge. Yeah.
Evidence shows the way to learn.
Yes, shows the way to learn. So this is basically what the whole thing is. Because the centrality of the text, and even more than the text, the person who is elucidating, unfolding the text, who is bringing the weight of the lineage, and who is being able to talk about how this problem of self-judgment and self-non-acceptance centered on the I is actually what? It's a notion which the person thinks to be as big as an ocean, and the ocean of notions is dismissed along with the sharks, the jellyfish, the clingy things, the seaweed, and the waves, the tsunamis, the riptides, the undercurrents, and then the person is no longer feeling like the float Sam, jet Sam. Yeah, that's what it is. And this is what the whole teaching is about, and that has to be understood, because there's no way to understand that just by sitting under a tree. Sitting under a tree, you can understand many things. One of the things is to never sit under trees, especially during the active bird, when the birds are active, do not sit under tree. That's itself an enlightening prospect to know that. And then when there is lightning also, don't go and stand under the tree, we are told. So like this is what the whole thing is. Now, the problem being centered on the person, and the person itself being the source of the solution. There is no way to understand this, even through reading the Upanishad. Reading just gives a lot more questions than one had before coming to the knowledge. It increases the questions. So, therefore, Shravanam means the listening to the teaching, because the listening alone makes the person relaxed enough to see what is it that one has missed. That is the first time. The second time, of course, it's the same thing, unfortunately, because one keeps missing. That's why it is an action that has to be repeated. Because the buddhi, it's not that people don't have buddhi. Even though people feel bad and say, I'm not remembering, it's not that you're not remembering. Oh, but I don't have recall. It's not even that you don't have recall. It's just that when the first time listening was done, it was crowded, it was overcrowded by fears, doubts, second guessing, distraction, resistance, and some core blocks. That is why the Shravanam has to be done again and again. And there's nothing to feel bad, because that is what even Nachiketa does. That is what Shvetaketu definitely does. That is what everyone in the Upanishads do. And that is the beauty of the story, because it takes away any kind of a feeling that, oh, I should have known better. Oh, I already heard it, why don't I remember? Why don't you remember is not because that is how the buddhi works. The buddhi is like a muscle, like any other muscle. First of all, it should not be kept on the shelf. Yeah. And the door locked, it's not for viewing, it is for using. On the shelf you keep some prized objects. Yeah, this is for using. And the muscle of the buddhi, like any other muscle, when you use it, it complains. Because it's been on the shelf for so long, you dust it out, bring it and put it into use. And it says, no, I'd rather just sit and look at space. I don't want to exert myself. I don't want to do what you're asking to do. And then you say, okay, yeah, it's too hard, don't worry. That is the time to press it into further use. And it has been demonstrated, even with people who have some problems. Like, aneurysm, people recovering from aneurysm, even Alzheimer's and all these dementia. The more they engage that muscle, even though there may be physical components that because of injury or what is that some kind of formation of some plaque, even though that is there, they are still able to override that. So you see, that's why buddhi and brain, even though they have a kind of an interface, of course there can be no brain without buddhi, but buddhi means it is more than the brain. Yeah, there is something there. That's why the brain keeps regenerating. And so there is something there that allows it to, be in the knowing, because the buddhi rides on what? That all-knowing I, which is Sarvagnya. I know, I am, I know what I know that I don't know, that I know can never be, understood, can never be negated. So with this understanding, we can see that this buddhi has a lot of capacity. And the capacity, what happens is eclipsed. Generally due to Shraddha not being enough. Yeah, that's why one says I'm forgetting. But actually, when the Shraddha is, when you cultivate the Shraddha, you try it and you find that your retention, grasping and recall increases. It's amazing. So it's just like when a muscle is injured, you strengthen the other muscles around it. And then what happens? That one automatically also gets strengthened and has the ability to move forward. So this is the tactic, and this is why the stories, help, because it shows that all these notions of self-judgment are just that, and they have to be dismissed by listening to the Shastra, because the listening to the teaching alone dismisses this. And so what kind of a listening? That listening quality has to be fine-tuned with the dust of distractions, dispersed with the Shraddha duster. Yeah, Shraddha is what takes away the cobwebs. And that Shraddha I keep it burning. Shraddha means reverence in this very fact that only through listening to the teachings I will be able to assimilate the truth of myself. This is what this is what Shraddha is. It's that devoted listening, and that devoted listening cannot happen until the teacher or the person giving the knowledge, becomes an object of reverence and devotion. Otherwise it cannot happen. Otherwise one is wasting one's time. It's nice to listen to some jokes, it's nice to listen to some stories, but then the mind is always occluded by fears, distresses, distractions. So strangely enough, there is a very interesting connection between the ability to not so much to remember, that's not the word I'm looking for, the ability to be in the knowledge, the ability to assimilate this, and the growing clarity, and the Shraddha. And Shraddha is not something that's switched on and switched off. No, it's never switched off. And I have to keep it burning. You can describe Shraddha as trust in the teaching, in the teacher, and in the whole situation of learning with the teacher, student and Upanishad in between, as trust in that process pending the gain of the understanding. So that is what is the whole kind of a thing. And then this Upanishad begins with a story, where Shraddha is paramount. Yeah. One more thing nobody mentioned, which I had touched upon before we go into this whole thing about how the story features Shraddha. One more thing about the story I told you is that it links the previous portion of the Veda and this portion. Usually it's a bridge, so that one does not feel drastically, what am I coming to? Just now I finished a ritual, an elaborate fire ritual, and now I am coming down and being to this teaching situation, and then I am told that I don't need to do rituals at all. What is this? Yeah, so this is what is completely, this is a bridge, a setu that bridges the relevance of the first portion of the Veda to the second portion. The first portion is the means, the second portion is the end. And also it's a bridge in another way, because it shows you that you know what you need to do for gaining emotional maturity. That emotional maturity, the gain of this emotional maturity is paramount to this knowledge. It's one of the most important, or the most important qualification to gain this knowledge. So the emotional maturity is highlighted by usually stories like Shaunaka, Nachiketa, etc., who were in the heartland of the first portion of the Veda, and then they slowly progress to the second portion. And because it's not that the first portion is a waste, it has helped them prepare cognitively and emotionally for what is to come, to be able to see the flaws of just seeking outside, which is what the first portion of the Veda is all about. It's all about just paranchikhani, seeking outside. And here you have to seek enough outside to know that you cannot get it. You cannot tell the person. They have to find out on their own. And then what? Then you finally understand that, okay, I have to go within, because what else is left? There are only two things, outside and inside. Outside has been mined completely, The metal detector hasn't come up with any nugget. So then what do I have to do? And immediately there's a hit. Ding! Oh, the gold is right here. I'm sitting on top of a treasure that I did not even know, which makes everything, all the treasures in the world, look like a heap of garbage. That is my treasure, and that is what I have to know. So the final thing about the story is that it makes you take off without feeling bad from everything that happened in the past, and you can equate in the modern day the first portion of the Veda to all the 5 marriages and the 15 children and the so many jobs and which dead end jobs, things, all the fights that you've had, all the mistakes you have made, all the missed opportunities or the missed takes, wrong decisions, wrong understanding, all these things which signifies the first portion of the Veda, meaning that so many trials and errors and still not the ability to see that the error is not because I'm not trying, but I'm trying in the wrong place, in the wrong way. So all that is bridged here to show, and there is first a cap put on it, meaning you were not wrong in your place. You did the best that you could, given your circumstances and given your understanding at that moment, in that time. Yeah, but all 75 years gone. Well, the 76th year is going to be a very good year. The day you commit to this knowledge is going to be the best year for you, best day for you. So the past, this is really the way the stories help to bridge not only the first portion of the Veda to the second, but what does that mean? My past to the present. Yes, it makes a repast of the past. It's wonderful. So it's just like the past. The past it hovers like a scepter. Why? Because it haunts you because of the guilt and the hurt. Your own omissions and commissions you cannot live with. Product of jnanam or ajnanam? Ajnanam. So then the past also haunts you because of the hurts, commissions and omissions of other people. So this is what the past, is composed of. The past comprises what you did that you cannot live with, and what others did towards you that also you cannot live with. This is what is the past. Is there anything else I've left out? No. Say no. And obviously not, because the past is just a bunch of guilt and hurt, characterized by my own omissions and commissions. And this is what is said in the Taittiriya Upanishad. Kimaham sadhu na karavam, kimaham papam akaravamiti. Why didn't I do the right thing? Why did I do the wrong thing? Thus, yeah. Translation with notations. Yeah, it's for us. So this is what the whole thing is. Here is where the rub lies, because that past becomes something I cannot live with. And in order to run away, I keep running away. And people also run to the Upanishad, thinking that I could do the same thing that I did before. But the Upanishad has a way to make you stop running. Yeah. It has a way to make you stop running. If you are ready to stop. Otherwise you keep running. Yeah. It has a way to just focus the spotlight on you and look upon yourself, perhaps for the first time in many, many lifetimes, with a certain acceptance, if not forgiveness, self-forgiveness. Then acceptance. All right, that was Zen, this is Tao. Yeah. At that time, whatever I did, I'm not proud of it, but whatever I did, all my errors of judgment, all judgment of other people against myself, that was then. That was then. This is what happened. Yes, whatever I did, I'm not proud of. Whatever other people did, I'm not proud of. But that is how it was. And now what? All that, instead of saying, oh, because of this I couldn't come to Vedanta, because I was sitting in a bucket of tears, and therefore I was just, dried out and dehydrated by the salt water of my oceanic tears, and therefore I couldn't come, and this was so horrible, and because somebody abused me and treated me badly, therefore I had a bad childhood, and because of this bad childhood I couldn't come to Vedanta because I was busy, rehearsing the childhood. This is what whole life is about. Is this a good excuse? No. Why not? Why isn't it a good excuse? It is not a good excuse, because in fact you are missing out on a very important thing by looking at it in this way. You are missing out on the fact that now that you are here, your childhood and all hoodie and hooded experiences has brought you here. Yes, it's that because of these experiences you have been led to question this. Yeah. As he said in the introductory Bhashya, Paunaf Punyena, Shravanam, because of the previous karma, good karmas. And so why focus on the bad? Because of all the good things you have done. You have come here. You've come here to a listening situation. That is your own good karma. Yeah. Your own good karma brought this whole situation, along. Because the teacher doesn't have any pressure to teach. And, the one who has the desire to learn calls forth with their shraddha, with their bhakti, with their desire, calls forth upon the teacher to teach. That's all it is. And the teacher just helps out by teaching. There is no other, thing. So instead of focusing on all the horrors, one should focus on this fact that, that I'm here, and then the stories in the Upanishad do this wonderful thing of putting a cap on the past. No more recaps. Yeah. No more recapitulation, because I have put that in a bubble. That was then. That was done. Now I am better, I'm more mature. I'm better, I have better understanding. That all that happened because of one thing and one thing alone. I was thinking that the world was the cause for my sorrow. Now I'm ready to suspend that judgment, hang up the judgment at the door before I walk in along with the shoes, and then see that may not be the truth. Perhaps see that the cause of the problem is not knowing the I, and so the solution is what is called self-knowledge. So this is a bridge to show the preparation. and to show that, really speaking, the heart is ready to trust, even the most pessimistic heart. Shraddha means trust. Even the most pessimistic heart is ready to trust. Is very, what's the word for it? Very eager to trust, actually. Because it's that trust as a child that was lost, which has to be regained. Childhood became a burden. Why? Because that trust was lost. Why was the trust lost? Because it was abused by the caregivers. But one has to regain that trust with regard to the teacher, with regard to the teaching situation, and that open-mindedness is Shraddha. And why am I harping on Shraddha so much? Because that is the topic with which it is opened. That is the purport of this story. That is the topic. That is the reason why this story is given, because it tells you what is common between the first and the second portions of the Veda. Shraddha. It is because of Shraddha that I do the fire rituals. What is the connection? Putting some wood in some, in a tin foil, and then, chanting some incantation and going on putting gobs of ghee. What is the connection between that and then some wonder that's going to happen? Like I told you, unknown means, unknown ends. We don't know what it is. But what is the connection? That is my own trust that so doing, because the ancestors have done it, will help. And you replace yajna, this fire ritual, with anything, working hard. Ancestors work hard. And this is what is that American dream. Pull yourself up with the shoelaces, and then what? You pull yourself up, uddhared atmanam, atmanaha, atmana, and with your shoelaces you pull yourself up. Yeah, nobody wears boots and nobody knows what straps are. That's why shoelaces. Pull yourself up with your shoelaces. And having done that, what? Then you have to strive, log cabin to White House, and then you know what? Then you have a fence, then you have your defenses, then then you get married, you have a spouse after having a house and a job, then you have a cat and a dog to play inside the fence, and you have a few babies. And then this is the American dream. If not a White House, a house that is painted white enough, with a little fence. This is the American dream, And how did this become part of the popular imagination? No, don't say, because everybody dreamt that. That doesn't have to be your dream. After all, Americans are supposed to be extremely individualistic. Why are you buying into some ancestor's dream? This might have been the dream of, some great-grandfather or great-grandmother. They wanted this. Why are you buying into that dream? Well, because they are my ancestors. Not enough. Not a good reason. You have Shraddha. That is what makes you buy into the dream. That this is desirable. That having a house is desirable. Having a job and a spouse and kids and pets playing in the yard is desirable. You have bought into that with your Shraddha. See, look at this. Very clearly it is. It is very clear to connect to this, even though you may not connect to some, archaic sounding fire ritual. Navagraha Homa, what is that? But here, this is very easy to connect to. And what does it say? Shraddha means that I have bought into their dream. On the basis of what? Because they were able to get all this. Did you go and ask them did you time travel back to 1762 and then find out if this was, desirable? Did you find out if they were happy? They might have been miserable. No, they must have been happy. Why? Because I have Shraddha. I am an eternal optimist. Optimist or not, you're eternal. So, and being eternal, of course, is, optimistic. There's nothing to be pessimistic about. So, I'm an eternal optimist. And so, I extrapolate the fact that they should have been happy or they could have been happy. That's what one thinks. So, aristocracy would be very happy because they had these huge mansions and all they did was they went and waltzed in the people's homes and, ballrooms and and every house has its own ballroom, huge, and then everybody went and cha-cha-cha'd themselves to ecstasy, and all they had to do in the morning over breakfast. This is what all the, what is that, these Jane Austen's novels tell us, that over breakfast the butler would bring on a salver I suppose is a plate, all the invitations for that day. And the aristocrat is looking, don't like them, low in the social hierarchy, don't need to go there. Ooh, this is from someone desirable, this is from someone higher than me, ooh, this is from the palace, and all these things. Then you dictate, if you're rich enough, you dictate the answer to your secretary. Otherwise you go into this writing desk that is all closed up, and then it rolls out, and then you sit and you, because some people will be, especially those higher to you, you have to answer yourself. If you make the secretary answer, they will not invite you next time. And then you write, and then you send it on another silver salver to say you will be there tonight. And then you don't have anything to wear, so you go shopping, on some I forgot, some street is there in London. So you go shopping there, Bond Street. Yes, you go to Bond Street and you buy all these things, and then you find some oppressed tailor and make them stitch the gown for that evening or the next evening. And this is all they did. And how can it be not, they didn't have to work, they didn't have to think of anything. The food appeared magically several times a day, and and there was nothing they had to do, nothing at all. So how can this life not be happy? Who says? You are saying, sitting here after getting lost in Jane Eyre, or some other, Pride and Prejudice, or whatever it is, yeah. So you start, you start having these kinds of notions because you are presented this life, and what makes you attracted to that is your own Shraddha. And why is that Shraddha driven to that life? Because it promises security. It promises a certain abeyance of samsara kept at bay. That is where the place for Shraddha is. That I want to get out of samsara. The problem is that Shraddha is wrongly directed towards all the objects, and the subject is the last one, to be thought of. And the subject, of course, cannot have Shraddha on itself. So therefore it is made to have Shraddha on the last part of the Veda, because the whole Veda is given, is given for the one who has Shraddha. And the last portion of the Veda is not going to talk on its own. So the Shraddha has to be extended towards the person who is talking about the last portion of the Veda. So all this, so you see, you can't just become, that may have been a nightmare. We are just reading this in books because it's all nicely painted. Maybe the host thought, oh my God, all these, things, I just want to go live in a cave, but I'm Lord so-and-so and I have to do this. All I want to do is find the Lord. Maybe there was a Vedantin wannabe in the Victorian times or in the Edwardian times. Who knew? Some aristocrat who says, I don't want all this. What is this? Meaningless balls and, everybody had gout, which is a disease of overindulgence. Gout means where this excessive rich foods, all these kidneys and everything, not kidney beans, the kidneys and all which you ingest too much, too many proteins, creates this excess of uric acid in the blood, and the extremities become numb and painful. Then also there is an indulgence. You go to a place called bath, and drink some sulfur water and to neutralize all this uric acid. And that also they make a big thing out of. There are soirees and assemblies and all kinds of things, and everything is a huge bhoga party. And that sounds good. Why? Because this insecurity is assuaged by, insecurity is centered on not having money and not having people. That's what really it's about. And these kinds of novels which cater to the popular imagination, you're surrounded by money. So much that it's just dripping out. Each time you shake your hands, money is coming out. And then you're surrounded by people. In fact, you cannot be alone. It was seen as something horrible. Oh, what happened? You know? So, but what we don't know is the underside of these stories, that perhaps there was a Nachiketa there. The unheard, unsung Nachiketa of the aristocracy who said, fie upon all this. This is ridiculous. Yeah. What are we doing here? Why do we have to do this? Who made these rules? And who is going to be happy as a result? Not I. Maybe somebody said that. Not I, because this is British English we are talking. Yeah, if he was American, he would have said, not me. Yeah. So this is the whole thing. And so therefore what? This Shraddha, where this is the first portion of the Veda, represents pleasure and security. Pleasure derived by having, certain aesthetic things like love and companionship and all these things, and then security through money and something that keeps samsara at bay. So the first portion of the Veda, just like the Pride and Prejudice, is all about how to get rich, famous and be influential, and it's all about, it paints a wonderful romantic story of the happily ever after. Yeah, with a big caveat. And even though the last chapter has people sailing into the sunset, sunset here in the first portion of the Veda means Swarga. That is the outreach. Swarajyam means here Swarga. Apnoti Swarajyam. It says in the, the first Shikshavalli of the Taittiriya Upanishad. And then, so you become Vachaspati, you become Shrotrapati, and then Etat Tato Bhavati. And then this is what it is. Shloko Bhavati, this is what it is. This is how the Upanishad, is talking, even though it's the first portion of the Shikshavalli, is talking about really what is possible in the farthest outreaches of this popular imagination derivative of security and pleasure. Just like the, ancient, whatever this romantic novel. So everybody is sailing off or driving off or walking off or riding off into the sunset. Sunset here means Swarga. That is what it is. Everything, the sun of the life has set, but you will not come to any grief. Yeah. That's why in the Ishavasya Upanishad, which happens in the middle of the Veda, not at the end, this is one exception. The person before death, prays, Kratosmara kritagasmara kratosmara kritagasmara agnenaya supatha araye. It says Kratosmara, think of all the things I have done, don't let me come to grief as I am dying. Kritagasmara, kritam smara, that which has been done, and all the rituals that I have been connected with, that I have been known for, all my actions, don't let them go to waste. Agne, oh fire. Which fire? The fire that's going to consume this body. And the same fire, don't forget, you were the same one I have invoked all my life with the ghee. I have kept this fire. 3 kinds of fires people kept. And this fire I have kept all my life. And this body is the final offering. The offerer, the body of the offerer is the final offering unto you. Don't forget that I have offered to you, O fire, here in the form of a devata. Naya, take me, supathaha raye. Raya is my own, good karma. Take me through through the path of light, where all the good karmas fructify. This is what it is, the first portion of the Veda. This is the prayer, that at the end of the life, please help, at least remember what I have done. Don't let all the good deeds go to waste. The person prays. So this is the furthest reach of samsara. But then that Shraddha, that okay, if I do this offering and if I put the body on the flames as with the idea that this is the final offerings, all this will come to be, is a very far-fetched Shraddha. Correct? Very far-fetched. Because it's all based on adrishta. How do you know when the person who was crying Krato smara, Kritaga smara, Agne naya, Me naya, Mam naya. And so, Ma naya, when the person says, take me, how? How do you know that the person was indeed taken to the correct place? Do you know that? No, because adrishta, it is separated because it is not immediately understood whether it came true or not. And it's also separated from oneself. In here, this Shraddha, because one doesn't know whether, when it will fructify. Yeah. Maybe the karmas were so strong that you have to visit some other place before you get to this place. Yeah. Like Arjuna, etc., had to go to Naraka first, and then they went to Swarga after they died. So this is what adrishta means. You don't know when it will fructify. You have no idea when it's going to fructify. And so therefore, but the Shraddha, even though you're able to have so much Shraddha there and keep it, keep it going. You keep that Shraddha going. Even though if you take the example that we took, even though you don't know when you are going to get the house and the spouse and the mouse and the, cat and dog and picket fence, you don't know when that's going to happen. If that's going to happen. And you don't know if after gaining that you will actually be happy, or even more you'll become a worry wart. Nobody knows. Correct? Still you have this Shraddha. And here the release is immediate. Still you don't have this Shraddha. What to say? This is irony. Yeah. The release is immediate. The relief is immediate. Samsara is suspended as soon as you hear that this notion is an ocean. Gone. Samsara, the other way around. So this ocean is an ocean. Yeah. Samsara is gone. And the release is immediate. There is no time gap, because what you see is what you get. What you are is what you ascertain yourself to be, and the truth of yourself is delivered so beautifully that you really don't have to do anything else. After gaining house, you have to then pay the mortgage. Here there is no mortgage. Yeah. That's why it's called mortgage. Mort means death. Yeah, means it will till the grave you keep paying. Here it is all about immortality, that you can gauge right here, right now, as the truth of yourself. There is no premiums, there is no ifs, there is no buts, there is no what ifs, there is no whether, there is no when, there is no question of how to experience this, because you are the nature of that experience. So easy it is to have Shraddha here. But all the Shraddha goes there and no problem, one doesn't even question. And here, I like the Upanishad, but the teacher, I like the teacher, but I don't like the Upanishad. I like both, but sometimes, something happens, I don't know. This is not an excuse. This is for you. The teacher is teaching for you. So basically, if you want to benefit, you have to be in a situation of learning and do whatever it takes to transfer that same Shraddha that you have in the happily ever after, in the ever, which is really, after gaining all those disappointments, this ever is discovered as you, this forever, which is you. You have to have this Shraddha. So the Shraddha here becomes the setu, the bridge between the first and the second portion of the Veda, very beautifully. And the Shraddha here is demonstrated in many ways. So I will tell the story and mark the Shraddha pointers, so you can put a little pin on all of them, and then we will study the Bhashya. So there was a person by the name of Vajasravas, and he had a child who was between 8 and 10 years old. We don't know the exact age. His birth certificate, there was some problem. What was his name? Nachiketa. And Vajasrava had a desire. He may have had many, but one of which we are going to look into. And what was that desire? Let me give my son away. Was that the desire? No. What was the desire?
Heaven.
I want to go to heaven. That was the desire. And what is this heaven? Brahmaloka Prapti. Indian heaven, Vedic heaven. Meaning even in heaven there are gradations. This one has no bugs. That's why it's called Brahmaloka. Nothing to bother you. Even yourself, that psychological core person is not there. Suddenly you find that you're in a good mood all the time. That is the heaven everyone wants to go to. And so this is the heaven painted by the Vedas. Just like your story of the chickens and the picket fence and the, that getting there. Yeah, why not? Pets. Some pets. Giving eggs, chickens, dogs, cats, living in the backyard. So this is what the whole thing is. So, this is the whole thing. He wanted to go to heaven. And this shows two things. One is that he thought that if he does this ritual, he will go to heaven. So here is where a great Shraddha is. What? Between the ritual and the end. Between the means called the yajna. Here it is called Vishvajit, world conquest. Really. Yeah. G, to conquer. So Vishvajit, the one who conquers the world. Which world here? Not just this world, but the other world as well. And so this was his desire. Perhaps it's a morphed desire from world domination, we don't know, world conquest. Anyway, that yajna is called world conquest. And ironically, for a yajna to be named Vishvajit, what do you have to do? You have to give away everything you own. This is already the bridge to the second portion of the Veda. It is hinting what one has to do to gain the truth of oneself, really, to gain this heaven. See, now here it's a very metaphorical thing. So this heaven, which is this, lies in your own truth of yourself, lies in your own nature. This heaven that is your own nature. What is this heaven? This heaven, Brahmaloka, is right here. It's you. It's the truth of you. So to gain that, what do you have to do? It's all metaphorical. Give up the notions. Give up the oceanic notions of despair, doubt, fear, lack of trust. All the things. Just give it up. Because you have to conquer another world. Yeah, a world that was yet uncharted, unknown, even though it was right there, undiscovered. Like now they have discovered in Cambodia a whole another temple complex with a means of some kind of radar and laser technology flying, and then if it catches stone or metal, it maps it out. So they have found so many temples. It was there. Where were these temples? Now they are going to go and unearth them without trying to destroy the forest. It has all been grown over hundreds of years old. It's part of the Angkor Wat temple complex. They are very excited. So through laser technology, they have mapped out these old temples. There is whole another complex which they had known to have existed from the texts, but they didn't know where. Now they know where it is. And so the UNESCO is involved and they are very excited about this. So like this, the temple, the inner temple, overgrown by the weeds of samsara, overgrown by weeds of ragadvesha, lack of shraddha, fear, desire, all these things, misunderstandings about the self. It's an unearthing of this temple. This is where the loka is. There is no loka outside of this overgrown temple with the weeds of desire. So really speaking, the temple has to be, first you have to trust that it exists. That's why they were able to spend the money to look into it. First, it was just pure on the basis of trust. They heard, they heard, just like Vajashrava heard, doing this will take me to heaven. So the metaphoric heaven is also here implied. That's why the Upanishad deals with it. That the metaphoric heaven, that heaven of oneness, right here, right now, that heaven of non-separation, heaven of self-acceptance, heaven of wholeness, which is right here, right now. It's not that it is manufactured by this ritual, whether it's Ihaloka or Paraloka, So here, that which is here and now need not be manufactured. But then the Upanishad chooses this particular yajna to illustrate this point, whose main thing was to give away everything that one owned. Here also, to own up the entire universe as you have to give up the small universe of holding on to notions, holding on to the smallness, and that smallness has to be completely let go of. This is the metaphorical meaning, and here is where Shraddha comes in. Just like one is able to give this Shraddha, have Shraddha for something which one doesn't even know when it will fructify, if and when we don't know. But right here, right now, it's ready to fructify. And so therefore what? I give it the Shraddha and I get ready to let go of all notions. So this is a very auspicious beginning, because it begins with two things, Shraddha and Vairagya. These are the two things that will be there. These are the two. See, not that all the other requisites for the studenthood are not important. They are important, but each Upanishad highlights some of them, And so here what is highlighted is Shraddha and Vairagya. And when we introduced this Upanishad, we talked about Dharma. We talked about Shraddha also, that openness. We talked about Shraddha a lot. And we talked about that cognitive ability, Viveka. So this is what the Upanishad also highlights. These are the three things. That's why I gave the introduction in keeping with this, the theme of this Upanishad. And so this is what it highlights, is the Shraddha, that having this Shraddha will take me to this end, whether the end is outside or whether the end is within. So it's all a very interesting metaphor. Vajashrava said, I want to conquer the world, or chose this Vishvajit. So who is really a Vishvajit? This is the first portion of the Veda talking. The one who gives away everything. One who is ready to surrender everything. Because what are you going to pack up for the next world? Some sandwiches? What can you pack? What can you take with you? When you look at any dead body, the hands are like this. You look at any newborn baby, the hands are like this. And this is a stance of closedness. I'm going to grab, I'm going to get this. And that's what the baby does. You offer it anything, it's going to grab. And then at the end of life, you have to let go. As you grow, you have to let go. That is the sign of growth. And so the sign of growth from going from one portion of the other, very interestingly and paradoxically, the one who wants to conquer everything in the form of this heaven has to give away everything right here, right now. This is what the thing is. And Vishvajit is a very important yajna. Even in the Raghuvamsha, Kalidasa mentions it. Raghu, everything he has given away. And all the golden pots, silverware. And silverware here is not just metal, clanking metal. Silverware means real silver. These, what is that called? Pots. These wonderful pots and lids and plates and cups. Everything was given. Gold was given. Silver was given. Copper, pewter, everything was given. Only clay was left. And then a student comes and says, please take care of my loans to the Gurukula. I have just graduated. And Raghu says, first honor him by washing his feet, but then there is no silverware. They do it in clay pots. And then he just gives whatever is left. He's, because the student came and he says, support the Gurukula. That is how they used to do. The student had to go out and seek a patron and bring them back or bring the money back and give it to the Guru before they decided what they wanted to do with their life. And in fact, the injunction is Acharyaya priyam dhanam akritya prajatantum ma vyapachetsihi. Having given Guru Dakshina, then only get married, not before. Because, marriage means more expenses. That is why there is a caveat there in the Upanishad. So here, Shraddha is there. The whole Upanishad begins brimming with Shraddha. Shraddha in one's deeds, one's own deeds, as a serving as a traveler's check to the future. Correct? Yeah, and Shraddha and because of that Shraddha, one will go to the extreme of giving everything one owns. Otherwise, what's the connection? Oh, I'll just pretend I have given. Okay, take it, but bring it back tomorrow morning. No! That's why the giving had the dana. You cannot just say, okay, you can have it, it's kept on the shelf. No. A dana given with Shraddha is not like, oh, please take it on your way out. It's never done. That's where the Shraddha comes. In Shraddha and Bhakti, whether it's in service, in seva or dana, is done with extreme humility. It's not like, oh, I have a lot of things. This is the American way of giving, I have a lot of things, take one on your way out or take as many as you want. Some cookies are there, take. No. That's actually insulting. That nobody will take in India. If you tell anybody who's doing the rituals, they will not do that. In fact, it is not a very good way, this thing. So we have the Upanishad advises us even on how to give. Priya Deyam, Bhiya Deyam, Samvida Deyam. Yeah. You have to give Hriya with the feeling, I wish there was more to give. Bhiya Deyam. Bhiya doesn't mean here fear. It means more in the sense of so much respect for the person. I'm honoring the person that I'm giving to. Why? Because that person is doing a favor for me by allowing me to do this service for them. Yeah, that is the feeling of giving. And you give with that humility. And you don't say, oh, just take it, and do this. This is not seva. This is not dhanam. Dhanam is seva, really. So, these are the rules of engagement we know from the opening story itself. Very beautiful. And it says how you have, how you have to give. And then that's why, so that you don't take back what you have given, whether your words or what you have given. There is a procedure for the giving. So you have to bring you have to call the person who is the recipient, you beg them to come, sit in front of you, you wash their feet, you anoint them with sandalwood and everything, you offer them flowers, you offer them something to eat and drink, and then you give your present, and you give it, put it in their lap or put it in their hand if it is, or place it in front of them if it is too large, and then you put, their hand and put some coin or some betel leaf, betel nut, whatever it is there, some token, and you pour water over this. Meaning the giving is, once the water is poured, the giving is final. You can't even go and borrow it and come back. No. It's a final giving. There is no going back. There is no saying, oh, I gave the wrong thing. Too bad. Oh, I changed my mind. Too bad. Yeah. So here the giver is blessed. Not because they have this ego behind the giving. Oh, let them collect it. I am the giver after all. Let them collect it on their way out. I'll just keep some things and then say, oh, take it. See how big I am? That is not bigness. That is actually your smallness. You're losing out. Yeah. Here the bigness is in completely surrendering to the service in the form of giving. Whatever you give comes from that heartfelt feeling. And that heartfelt feeling is brought out in the Vishvajit Yajna to the extreme. Because one giving you can just mimic. Okay, here is some water, all right, take it, go. But you can't mimic when all the things in the house are leaving. One by one, by one, by one, by one, by one, they are all leaving. Yeah. So therefore you are seeing this. And and then what happens is that you have that Shraddha, and you cannot just keep, if you're doing it many times, every day, because this Vishwadijit went over 1 or 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, like this. So every day you are giving so many things, and you are giving away. You cannot just fake it. You have to really make it, not just fake it. And so therefore, the whole idea of giving with humility and with Shraddha, whatever you give, whether it's a service you offer or whether it is something that you give, you never give haphazardly, carelessly, nonchalantly. No, the whole person is engaged in the act, and that is when the Shraddha blesses, not otherwise. Yeah, so that is what is all talked about, and more we will see after a short break. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.